I'll start by saying this. 11th grade is hard. This is supposed to be the hardest year of school. And guess what? It is. This year's honestly been a roller coaster, both academically and emotionally. My mental health especially was being challenged. Now you may ask, why did I go through all this year? The answer? I have no clue how it happened. So, welcome to my video on mental health and methods to relieve it. So what is mental health? Let's break down these two words first. Mental and health. Mental, according to Oxford Languages, is relating to disorders of the mind. Health is the state of being free from illness or injury. So the full definition of mental health is this: the state of being free from illness or injury relating to the mind, or as Oxford likes to call it, a person's condition with regard to their psychological or affecting or arising of the mind and emotional well-being. Now, what can disrupt your mental health is something called a mental disorder, which in definition, according to the Mayo Clinic, is a state of confusion that affects your mood, thinking, and behavior. In 2019 alone, 1 in every 8 people live with some form of mental disorder. And that number only rose in 2020 thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic by 26 to 20%. That's around 3.5 billion people. There are many mental disorders, but today we're only going to take a look at 3 of the most widely known mental disorders. Those 3 mental disorders are anxiety, depression, and PTSD. First, anxiety. No, not the song which has a melody of another song that is way better, the mental disorder, so shut that off. Thank you. Anxiety is the state of feeling nervous or worried that something bad is going to happen. For example, let's say you're in school. You finish a test, that's good. And then you hand it into your teacher, so that way he or she can grade it. And you just want to know what you got. If you pass, that's great. If you don't, well, it's the most dreadful thing in the world. But people worry too much that it affects their everyday life in a bad way, then it's considered a mental disorder. In 2019, 301 million people were living with anxiety, whether it be general, panic, social, separation, and just so many more. Next, we have depression. Perhaps the most commonly well-known mental disorder and one that is widely misused as a word. Depression is not a state of sadness. Most people think it is, but that's not the correct term. Depression, by definition, is a medical condition in which a person feels very sad, anxious, and without hope, and often has physical symptoms such as being unable to sleep, etc. This was perhaps the most widely known disorder during the pandemic, and still is today the most widely known disorder amongst teenagers. Trust me, even I suffered depression. Thankfully, I was able to recover, but man, that was a traumatizing experience. In 2019 alone, 280 million people were living with depression, including 23 million children and adolescents. The side effects are also super serious, as they include poor concentration, feeling of excessive guilt or low self-worth, hopelessness about the future, disruptive sleep, changes in appetite or weight, feeling especially tired or low energy, and worst of all, thoughts about dying and suicide. That's right, people have unalived themselves just because of depression. So for those saying that depression is just another word for sadness, think again. The final disorder we're going to talk about today is PTSD, which its full name is post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, this is a mental illness following a very frightening or shocking experience, which usually involves feeling anxious and depressed and having frightening thoughts. Sometimes it feels like you are forced to relive those same experiences. These symptoms go on for at least several weeks. So while it may not be as long as the other 2 we talked about, possibly, it's still serious along with the other 2 we talked about, along with many other mental disorders. These include bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, The last two of which are eating disorders, disruptive behavioral and social disorders, neurodevelopmental disorders such as attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, most commonly known as ADHD, and autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and so many more. Now that we've talked about a few mental disorders along with mentioned many others, what causes them? Well, the answer is, complex. According to Medline Plus, there is no single cause for a mental disorder. In fact, there are numerous factors what brings up mental disorders, including general predisposition, meaning that mental disorders are part of the family tree, so you have no choice but to experience what your family felt. Biological factors pertaining to the brain, psychological factors such as stress, low self-esteem, and forms of trauma and abuse during childhood, and environmental factors such as substance abuse and chronic medical conditions. But I feel like another thing that causes a mental disorder is just being an introvert. With me being the only one that sleeps on the bottom floor of my house with the only thing keeping me company being sassafras, it's been lonely at first, but then I just adjusted to the feeling of it being that way. But I would argue that the biggest issue that causes mental disorder is social media. We can be so interconnected with each other online that we forget who we even are as a person. And this, in my opinion, is one of the main causes for teens to develop a mental disorder. Why, you may ask? Because teens are easier to attack because they feel more free. Trust me, this is one of the main reasons why being a teenager is so hard. Combine that with stress from school, wanting to be left alone, and so many more factors. Mental disorders, especially when it comes to teens, are no joke and shouldn't be joked about whatsoever. So, are there solutions to these disorders? Well, while we can control to some extent, it probably won't stay gone for a good while. But here are some ways to treat it. First, exercise for at least 30 minutes. Now, it doesn't have to be all fancy, it just has to be something that will work. Just enough exercise will feel so gratifying. Second, eat a balanced diet and drink plenty of water. I would also recommend paying attention to how much caffeine and alcohol you consume. Third, make sleep a major priority. Part of the main reason why teenagers feel the way they are is because they don't manage a good sleeping schedule. Then again, they really shouldn't be taking all of the blame, to be honest, as adults are guilty as well for waking us up super early just to go to school/work. Fourth, find a relaxing activity. Such examples include muscle relaxation, reading, listening to music, spending time in nature, and engaging in low-stress activities, such as building model kits from companies like Lego. Fifth, make a schedule on what needs to get done and what could possibly get done the next day. If you're taking it in too much, don't feel afraid to say no. If the option is available, set it aside and focus on stuff that is more important than other stuff. Sixth, limit your time on screens. This does not just mean social media, but all screens in general. So turn off that phone, computer, tablets, or anything that has a screen like this TV that you're watching this video on right now. And by the way, yes, I had to break the fourth wall. And finally, stay connected with family and friends for emotional support. Getting help from humans physically is arguably better than getting help from humans socially, such as online. Trust me when I say this, it feels so gratifying once you've actually talked to them. In summary, mental disorders should not be joked about or ignored. This is a common issue that's been around for a long time, and that number only grew thanks to the pandemic. So I urge you to pay attention. The clues are all around us. And if you're suffering from mental disorder, don't feel afraid to tell others. I feel like we have this fear that if we do tell, they'll be disappointed. And I get it. Sometimes they might be, but it's not your fault. It's the world around us that's the problem. So I recommend that when you can, maintain your mental health. It will feel so rewarding when you do. Thanks for watching.